Namaskaram. Mahabharatam, Karna Parvam, the second day under Karna, and the 17th day of the war. We already started with it last day and we are continuing. And on the 17th day, Ashwatthama took a pledge that he shall not remove his armor until he has killed Drishtadyumna, who had chopped Drona's head off, who had killed Drona. And with that pledge, he was in a terrible form that day, fighting against the Pandava veterans. And Karna had a fight with Yudhishthira. It was so fierce a fight that Yudhishthira felt totally exhausted and he withdrew from the fight, went back to his tent and fell down on his bed. He was totally exhausted. And after a while, when Arjuna and Krishna had no news about Yudhishthira, they saw him fighting against Karna, but then they didn't know what happened to him. So they came back to the tent to find out whether he came back or what. And Yudhishthira thought that Arjuna was fighting against Karna. So when he saw Arjuna back, Yudhishthira assumed that Arjuna was coming back after killing Karna. So Yudhishthira said, "Oh, tell me all about the fight. Tell me how you killed Karna. I want to know the details." Then Arjuna, in an apologetic tone, said, No, brother, I'm sorry, I haven't fought with Karna yet. I was busy finishing off killing the Samshaptakas. Afterwards, I shall certainly kill Karna. This disheartened Yudhishthira terribly, because after getting defeated by Karna, Yudhishthira was all eager to hear the news. So he got dejected and mocked Arjuna, saying, "What use is that Gandiva in your hand? You couldn't accomplish this. You better give that Gandiva to someone else who has Kshatriya blood, who has warrior's blood in him." That was a very big insult to Arjuna. Not only that, Arjuna had taken a pledge that if anybody talks in those terms, demeaning himself and Gandiva together, he shall kill that person immediately. That was a pledge. So he drew his sword to kill Yudhishthira and was about to go to Yudhishthira. But Krishna said, "Oh, but Skal, it is a pity that you behave like this. This is because you have not understood dharma well. Actually, killing someone who doesn't deserve to be killed is worse than telling a lie. You may tell a lie under some circumstances, in the context of a marriage, in the context of when your entire wealth is being robbed of you, etc. A few instances. But killing, and in what is it called, in the following cases, if someone is not fighting against you, one who has turned back on you, that is withdrawing from the fight, who sought refuge under you, in these cases you are, what is it called, you shouldn't kill. And Krishna explained why Yudhishthira spoke those harsh words which he would never have spoken otherwise. Because Krishna understood what would have happened clearly. And so Krishna said he doesn't deserve to be killed. So, but Krishna said, someone who does deserve respect as Yudhishthira does from you, if spoken to with disrespect, it is as good as death to him. That is, it is as though you have killed him. In local terms, we call it Tejovadham. So, it is enough if you insult Yudhishthira. And one way Krishna said was that you normally address him as, in Malayalam we don't use the second person hardly ever, except for young people, your children, your younger brothers, etc. You don't use second person at all. You use brother, you, something like that. In Hindi, you use aap when you give respect. If you don't, you may use tu or tum, which are disrespectful to people whom you are supposed to give respect. In Sanskrit, it is tvam in all cases, except you use bhavan when you want to give respect. So to Yudhishthira, you would have used bhavan normally, but instead if you speak to him with addressing him as tvam, then it's an insult. So that way you can keep your pledge concerning Gandivam by going to him and speaking him in second person using tvam. So Arjuna thought that is probably a good idea. So he went to Yudhishthira and started speaking to him tvam. In the Malayalam translation, it is ni, which we use for our own children or to much younger people. I know even to, if it is a relation of yours, your nephews, etc., then you may use ni, but not otherwise. So he got so, Yudhishthira, when he heard this, he so disgusted with himself that Yudhishthira was very upset. So he said, I am going to give up everything. I am going to retire to forest and spend the rest of my life doing meditation. And he was he started going. And Krishna pleaded with him, no, please don't go, don't take him seriously. There is a reason he is doing so. But Yudhishthira wouldn't listen. So Krishna physically caught hold of his feet and said, oh, no, don't go, please. Listen to me, let me explain. And with a lot of persuasion, Yudhishthira agreed to stay back. And after this, Arjuna got upset with himself, disgusted that he drew the sword, and Krishna asked, why? Why the sword now? You have achieved what you wanted to achieve by speaking to your brother with disrespect. Why pull the sword? The Arjuna said, I want to give up my life for speaking like that to my brother. Then Krishna had trouble in, what is it called, in pleasing Arjuna, to cooling him down. Krishna started praising Arjuna for all the valorous deeds, for the great achievements of his, and Krishna also detailed the insults the Kauravas did to Pandavas, including the game of dice, what they did to Draupadi and all that. With that, he managed to flare up Arjuna's anger. So Arjuna forgot about this committing suicide. Instead, he asked Krishna, take me to Karna, show me where Karna is. Incidentally, there is Mahabharata, story of Mahabharata written in English by C. Rajagopalachari, who was a great person, an intellectual, a freedom fighter, who was also a good writer. And in his Mahabharatam, he has omitted this part completely. He has narrated the important parts very well, but omitted these details, which probably are not the original Mahabharatam. And many people, scholars, have all along said this Mahabharatam has been interpolated a lot. Lots of people have added to it on top of what Vedavyasa wrote originally. So, during the last 5-10 years, Bhandarkar Oriental Research Institute in Pune, they employed scholars to study Mahabharata and do a thorough editing. What they thought were interpolations to be thrown out and bring out a clean volume. And they have done so, and they have published the clean part, the moolam only, the text alone, separately, and then with interpretations, with explanations as another volume. I know they exist, but so far I haven't managed to get a copy. At least that text alone, that is without the interpretation, I want to get, especially after reading things like this. And so that episode is over, and that day Bhimasena was in a terrible mood. Where is it? Yeah. Bhimasena was in a terrible mood. He had an encounter with Karna, and he was defeated by Karna, and he had to be removed from there. And later on, he had an encounter with Dussasana. It was a fierce fight, and after a while, Dussasana's arrows pierced Bhima's chest, and he lost consciousness and sat down on the chariot. After taking rest for a while, he recovered and he stood up and started fighting against Dussasana fiercely. After some time, he lost patience. He jumped down from the chariot and threw his mace, huge mace, to Dussasana. It crushed the chariot, and after that it hit Dussasana on the head. Even that impact was so fierce that Dussasana fell down, losing consciousness. And Bhima didn't wait for him to recover or so. He pulled Dussasana down to earth, stamped on his chest, drew his sword, and pierced Dussasana's chest with the sword or with the hand, whatever it is. Dussasana's chest was pierced, and he, with both hands, cupped both hands and took blood which was coming out. And while everybody, including Duryodhana and Karna, were watching from a distance, he drank the blood and roared, saying that, yes, now I have kept my promise. I have kept my promise that I shall drink Dussasana's blood. And that day, after the fight, he went to Draupadi, and Draupadi had taken an oath that she will not tie her hair until it is tied with Dussasana's blood. So Bhima went and tied Draupadi's hair with blood from Dussasana's chest smeared on his hand. And that way, the pledge of Bhima and pledge of Draupadi both were redeemed on the 70th day. I think our time is up. We don't have time for Arjuna's fight against Karna, which we shall take up next day. Namaskaram.